Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle. The Palo Alto Unified School District Board voted last week not to censure a board member who previously voted against a measure to approve a controversial liberated ethnic studies curriculum for the district. Joining me to tell us more about this is Chalkboard News editor Brennan Clary. Brennan, can you tell us about what led up to this?
Yeah, absolutely. So behind the scenes leading up to the roughly 5-hour Palo Alto Unified School District board meeting last week was a previous vote on a liberated ethnic studies curriculum. So we've talked about this maybe a little bit during the podcast if listeners have listened for a long time, but a liberated ethnic studies curriculum is sort of this idea. It kind of has a little bit more of an ideological movement kind of built into it of like this understanding of like if you're invoking sort of this liberated ideology, I think there is like sort of a Paulo Freire pedagogy of the oppressed sort of terminology that's sort of borrowing from that, I think. And sort of like if you can teach people about ethnicity and you can teach people about race, then you can sort of get to a place where people have like there is no oppression. So there is sort of I think that there's a bit baked into that terminology of liberated ethnic studies, and so that's kind of a little bit simmering behind the scenes. And then also leading up to that in Palo Alto, you did have the school send out an email to staff saying, hey, we're not gonna vote on this right now. We're going to go with the regular ethnic studies course that's already been approved. But then it came up to a vote, and they did approve this liberated ethnic studies course that is a little bit more controversial. And during that vote, you had some board members, including Rowena Chu, she was going to be censured at this most recent board meeting. And so she spoke out against it and said, I don't like this. I don't feel comfortable with this. And there's other parent groups as well that have criticized it, and other outside organizations as well that have targeted it. And that kind of plays into the larger debates and controversies over liberated ethnic studies or ethnic studies generally as well. Like those have caused some controversy. So that's kind of behind the scenes there. And then also too, there was a little bit of a social media imbroglio too, where Chu kind of publicized a staff member's role in the debate about the liberated ethnic studies program, and basically made that a flashpoint as well. So that was also part of the vote, is whether to censure her because she reposted some social media that was targeting a school staff member named Danae Reynolds, who was basically responding to Rowena Chu's statements about feeling unsafe, and said you don't really have, in not so many words, or in more words, said, you kind of don't have an opportunity to feel unsafe because there are other people who feel more unsafe because of their race, essentially. And so it was just a very interesting sort of illustration about these kinds of issues and about these kinds of debates that are related to ethnic studies and about ethnic studies. And so it's just kind of a lot more of this like cultural tension that we've seen at these school board meetings for the last few years. Like I know that we've also talked about how some of these kind of cultural fights might be cooling down. That's maybe true, but we've also seen some of these kinds of tensions rise up in recent weeks as well.
And there's been some just community response to the consideration of this curriculum. How has the wider community felt about them adopting this curriculum?
Yeah, I think it's been a pretty. I think there's been a split. I mean, you can hear from the school board meetings when they're discussing some of the points of the ethnic studies curriculum. You can hear people snapping their fingers and sort of applauding in a quiet way some of the statements from Danae Reynolds, for example. But then you also have the Palo Alto Parent Alliance, who has submitted a letter to the superintendent talking about how this ethnic studies course hasn't received the kind of transparency and, quote, community input, and they're embracing, quote, a highly controversial and divisive liberated ethnic studies. And so other parent groups have said, we need to stop this ethnic studies rollout and continue to use the current one. So basically slow down and wait to hear from more parents about these issues. So I think that there is like quite a bit of a divide, and we've seen this before too. And you have, if you have liberal or more progressive leaning families or communities that are pushing for this, and then you have some parent groups or like some parents who are saying like, who are more conservative or more right leaning, they're saying, well, we don't want to have anything to do with this. And then sort of complicating that, you have a dialogue at the federal level. The Trump administration is targeting things that have these ideologically divisive or critical race theory sort of topics. They're targeting that too. So there's a lot of controversy around these kinds of ethnic studies, specifically liberated ethnic studies courses, based on those like ideological viewpoints about race and different identity factors.
So as we mentioned, she was not censured for this, but there was other consequences. Can you get into what the school board voted on? Yeah,
so the board voted on a resolution. They did not censure her, as you mentioned, but they did vote on a resolution, and they stripped Chu of her committee assignments because of the social media post that she retweeted a post on X, kind of calling out the staff member Danae Reynolds, and so she faced those repercussions and had her committee assignments removed. So she's still on the school board and she still has that power, but she's kind of been and hasn't had that formal repudiation, but has had that the fallout from that still affect her ability to be on the school board there.
Well, Brendan, thank you for your insights on this story. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at chalkboardnews.com.